So to seal my work, I'm using a heat-resistant deco varnish. You don't need a heat-resistant deco varnish. A deco podge or a Mod Podge, basically any craft sealant of your choice would suffice. So I'm starting out at the top, and it's not really important where you start, but it's more important to keep track of where you are at all times so that you make sure that you cover all of your surface. I started with the brush for the sides and then I ditched it. The reason why I'm using my finger for the sides is because it's a small area. I can spread the product better with my finger. I can also feel if the area was covered sufficiently. I also feel that your hands and fingers are probably your best tools. This is a water-based product, so it was easy for me just to clean my hands with some soap and water. But if you're worried about anything, wear some gloves. When you're done with the sides, don't forget to run your finger along the edge. Because this is a textured piece, you want to make sure that you pay attention to the pattern of your piece. This piece has patterns running down like straight lines and also diagonal across. It also have a lot of raised bits. When I do the second coat, I will explain a little bit more of how I make sure to cover all of my surface area. Right, so my camera died yesterday, or the battery died, and so I didn't show you how I completed the first coat of the sealer, but no worries, we're doing a second coat and I'm going to give you a lot of tips in this round that I think is going to be valuable if you want to do something like this. Firstly, why do we seal our work? The obvious one would be to protect our work, right? We want to protect this from dust and whatever else, because this is going to be hanging up in the house. It's also easier to clean. You can just take a damp cloth, not wet, damp or normal cloth, and just wipe the surface to clean. And secondly, I think once you have a coat on here, like a sealer or something to protect your work, you can see the colors just looks more vibrant. I don't know if you can pick it up, but in real life it looks more vibrant. It pops. Tip number 2 is when we apply. So I'm just gonna put it in here. I'm sort of gonna dab just to spread the product. So I'm picking the product up on the brush, dabbing, 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 dabbing. So that's not the tip. The tip is when you do the second coat, you're gonna do it in a different direction. So my first direction was going down, and my second direction would be going across. But before I do that, because I've got a lot of grooves, and these grooves, well, pattern, I would say a pattern. The pattern is downwards, and it does have a lot of grooves, you know, dimension. So I'm gonna first go down again. And my hand is gonna be a little bit heavy, not too heavy, but because I just want to get it into all the grooves, right? And then I want to tap a little bit just to make sure I'm getting everything in there. And the reason that we're also going in the different direction is that we want to make sure that our canvas has been fully covered in a sealer, to make sure all of the work, to make sure that the work is protected properly, right? And I'm going to go in a lighter hand, much lighter. See, I can already see this product getting stuck into the grooves. I'm just like pulling them out a little bit with a light hand, of course. And so, well, with a light hand this time. So when I go across now, I'm going across with a much lighter hand because I don't want to get too much product puddling in the grooves, right? I'm glad I'm doing this on a cold day so that the sealer don't dry too quickly. So that's the main reason I would do another direction. For this type of artwork, I wouldn't say it's really because of paint lines that you can see, because it's a little bit harder to pick up lines on this because it's a textured piece, right? So it's mainly for coverage reasons. And now I'm going, my hand is extremely light. And then I just dab where there is deeper grooves. I just want to go down so that I can see if I've covered everything. And so far from what I can see, that's been covered properly. Right. You can use resin to cover your work as well. But that probably, I haven't done resin yet. I've worked a lot with resin, but not with paint, with covering paintings. I've watched a few videos on how to do it, but I won't say I'm an expert. But when it comes to covering clay pieces, which for me I feel it's a little bit similar to this, I think I've not mastered, but I've done a lot of work, so I do know a thing or two about it. When I go down and I check in the light, I can see where I've missed the spots. I don't really want to go back. Once you're finished somewhere, you don't want to go back. Right, so we are moving on to the next spot. I don't want to miss a little spot, the starting point again, so that's why I'm moving on to where I can actually, well, I'm moving down eye level so I can see where to start. I sort of do a little bit of an overlap on where I stopped. That looks good. You could do a little bit of dab if you see some lines first. Dab, dab, dab. Light hand across. And then we're just going to move on to the next section. Of some lines moving this way, it's starting to move this way, so I just want to make sure that we get in the grooves over there. Eye level, sort of cross over with the last one, with the last piece we painted, just so that we don't miss any spots. And then we move on. Nice. Of texture coming up, raised bits, so we're just gonna. So now we've come to the part where we've got a lot of diagonal lines running across, and at this point I'm dabbing and then I'm following the pattern, which is the diagonal line first and then I go across again. The reason I'm dabbing all the time throughout the painting is to push the product into all the ridges of the painting, because I don't want to miss any spots, and then I go over it with a light hand of up and down strokes in the direction that I want to apply the sealer in. And I really try to do my last stroke as light as possible, for the reason that I don't want excess product to be accumulating into the grooves. I just want you to see the grooves that I was talking about. And I judge. Right, like I can see it from here. Just gonna zoom you in. And so got too much product in here. What I did is I just dabbed, right? Take some product off. But I went that way. I followed the pattern a little bit.
So we come to the end piece, the last piece, and I'm just going to dab right across like this. Make sure I get into all the grooves and drag it up a little bit, because there's quite a bit of grooves at the bottom as well. I just want to cover everything. Just with a light hand, I cover everything. Just trying to make sure there's no excess of product in the grooves. There we go. And I'm just going to do the sides. I might just take my finger again. Don't know, we'll see. But I'm starting out with a brush. But yeah, this is basically it. Okay, there we go. We are done with the ceiling. I'm going to wait for this to dry for 24 hours and then I'm going to take you in for a closer look. I'm going to show you how much product is left in my brush. Look at that. That's a lot, right? So the leftovers actually went into a container because I don't have any work to do, any sealing work to do this week, so I figured I might as well store it in a container and hopefully it will last till the next year.
So I made this piece from painting over an existing art piece. Well, it wasn't really art. It was a printed, inexpensive piece that I bought for my daughter when she was much younger. So this is really a way that you can reuse, repurpose, upcycle things that you already have into something that you appreciate now, because I mean, we do grow as people and we don't always love the pieces that we used to enjoy, right? I basically spent nothing on this piece. I had all the equipment on all the products already, and I know many of us don't, but you can use an existing piece and upcycle it by using inexpensive products. Some of my paints were a little bit more expensive, others were really inexpensive. My brush was dirt cheap, and if you buy some of the product I used to make the texture, you can reuse it again. To create, you don't need anything fancy. You just need a little bit of imagination and of course a love to create. If you want to know how I made this product, how I painted it, or how I did the textured art, there is a part 1, 2 and 3 before this part, so please check it out. I'm not claiming to be an expert in this field. What I will say is there is many ways to skin a cat. I love creating and I love to learn new things, and I also want to share what I've learned. Sometimes I learn from others, sometimes I just try something new on my own, and sometimes it's a combination of I don't really follow rules when it comes to creating, and I think that's the fun part of creating. If you have found my video helpful or just entertaining, then please consider subscribing. It will really help my channel out, and I want you to know that I appreciate you.